Alright, peace. I am Tahuti Ra'iteru. Now this video right here is to address the situation that is currently unfolding in the so-called Black conscious community. But this video is not an attack on my brothers and sisters. It is more of an analytical evaluation of their level of consciousness. The next thing I want to quickly address is that a few of my subscribers got a little upset that I had disabled the comments on my last video. But the reason I had to disable the comments is because of the controversial nature of that video. That video contained a lot of controversial information that I predicted that will get a negative response from the people who it was aimed at. So as a precaution, I disabled the comments. But for future videos, if the content is too controversial, then I will have to disable the comments for those videos as well. Also, one thing that I probably should have told you before is that I am an Aquarius. But the reason why this is important is because this means that I am a radical and I bring forth radical change. This is probably why when I first came on the scene, a lot of people didn't like me. That's because they couldn't understand my energy and what I was about. So they just perceived it as hate. But I understand that, as nobody likes change, but as an Aquarius, I am the embodiment of change. But the reason why I am telling you this is because, as the radical that I am, this is present in the nature of my videos. So you may watch a video of mine and resonate with it, but then you may watch another video and completely disagree with it. But not because the video isn't truthful, but because the truth in that video is no longer favorable to you. So I am just letting you know this right now, that I am a radical, so I am on nobody's team. I am on the side of truth, and anybody can get in touch with this truth. So with that being said, let's get straight into this video. Now, a majority of black people in the so-called conscious community love their struggle. They are comfortable with the condition that they are in. They have gotten so comfortable with their condition that they don't even know the solutions to get out of their condition. This is evident in the fact that black people are addicted to the D. The so-called conscious black community loves the D. Now what is the D? The D is debates, documentaries, and doctrines. Black people are obsessed with these three things. When these three things are just mediums that you are supposed to use as a basis to create something practical and actually make a change in the black community. You are not supposed to be addicted to the medium itself. So the key here is that black people really need to get off the D and instead get in that P, which is practical application, problem solving, and a plan of action. So now I will break down how each of these D's are affecting the black conscious community and what black people should not be doing versus what black people should be doing. So let's start off with debates. The black conscious community is addicted to debates. When a debate is only the first stage, the reason why you have a debate is to iron out the kinks in one's own plan. So once the debate is over, you are supposed to have a definitive plan that you all agree on. Then you should be able to work towards implementing that plan. But debates and arguments can take place on a minor scale. But when you have a debate on a broad scale where two parties come together, that means that there is a problem. As you wouldn't have a large debate on a massive scale if there wasn't a problem. So now with that being said, in the so-called conscious black community, these debates are not about coming to conclusions, but instead they are about entertainment. Black people are being entertained. But what I have noticed is that whenever a debate finishes, black people in the so-called conscious community always ask who won. Like it is some sort of battle, when the purpose of a debate is not about who won, but really about a conclusion. But at the end of the day, the only losers of these debates are black people. Every time there is a big debate, black people have lost. Based on the fact that the reason why you have a debate in the first place is because there is a problem. So the fact that black people have had so many debates means that there is a problem. So black people will always lose every time there is a great debate. Now I remember watching a Sarnetta video and he was in the black community asking regular black people about their hair and what is their take on black women with natural hair. But what was most interesting is that there was a woman in the video who recognized Sarnetta, and she asked Sarnetta, when is the next debate? But see, that alone proves that black people are addicted to the D. Because as I said, the only reason why you have a debate on a broad scale if there is a problem. So a person should not be asking when is the next debate. In fact, whenever there is a big debate, black people should be annoyed. Because another debate means that there is another problem brewing in the black conscious community. So black people really should be saying, I hope there are no more debates, as that would mean that there is progress being made and that the problems are being solved. But now, speaking of debates, there was a recent debate called Kemi on Trial, and the premise of that debate is which doctrine is better for black people, the Bible or teachings from ancient Egypt. But again, that debate did not set out what it was supposed to do, as all I saw was black people tearing down each other's doctrines. Not one conclusion was made. Also, a debate is supposed to be a formal discourse, but yet there was nothing formal about that debate. From what I saw, there was a lot of screaming going on, and there was even entertainment taking place, such as rapping. Now, if you never knew any of the people in this debate, you would just think that you were watching a rap battle. Now, things like this make me question the level of consciousness of the black community, as how can you have rapping at a debate? But there is also a contradiction here, as these same people that took part in the debate will talk about how they come from a lineage of kings and queens. But what kind of king and queen will associate themselves with the madness that took place during that debate? As you will never see rapping during a presidential debate. But yet you claim to be descendants of kings and queens. So why is it okay for you to have rapping at your debate? But as far as the premise of the debate, such as which doctrine is better for black people, the Bible or ancient Egyptian teachings, that in itself is a blanket statement. As a debate like that, black people will always lose, because you can't come to a conclusion with a debate like that. That's like saying, who is better, women or men? A debate like that can span to the end of time, and you will never be able to come to a conclusion. But see, I don't believe for 1 second that the people hosting these debates are stupid. I don't believe that they are stupid enough to think that a positive outcome could come from a debate like this. So it really makes me question the intentions of these people and whether or not they really want to help black people, or unless they have their own agenda. But I will speak more about this a bit later. But as far as Kemet on trial, the debate really should have been the Hebrew Israelites on trial, as the purpose and the role of the Hebrew Israelites has yet to be established. We can't take away from the fact that the Hebrew Israelites are preaching on the streets. We have to respect that these people are on the front line preaching their truth. But I understand the overall premise of the Hebrew Israelites being that they are the people that the Bible speaks of, but I feel like their approach is not the best. The Hebrew Israelites do speak a lot of truth, but I feel like their message is laced with a lot of animosity towards the so-called white man, who they refer to as the Edomite or Esau. But see, the Hebrews will say that black people are God's chosen people, and we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. But if black people are God's chosen people, then why are you preaching the message to black people? As black people are going to be the chosen people of God regardless. For example, Jesus Christ or Yeshua in the Bible is also a metaphor for the sun. So Jesus Christ is the S-O-N, and he is also the S-U-N. So what this means is that the sun in the sky is the Son of God. Hence why Jesus Christ is the Son of God. But if Christ is the S-U-N and he is also the Son of God, then anyone who is associated with the Son would be the chosen people of God, because they are affiliated with his Son. But see, black people are melanated, and the melanocytes retain the light frequencies from the sun, thus making black people deeply hue or black. And because black people have the most melanin, they are therefore the chosen people of God, because they have a strong relationship with his Son. But this is not to say that white people are not the children of God, as all people on earth are children of God. But because black people were the first people on this planet, they were the firstborn children of God. So because of this, black people have a closer relationship to the Father God. It's just like a regular family. The firstborn son will have a closer relationship to the father than the lastborn son. But in this case, white people will be the lastborn children of God, so they don't have a close relationship to the father as the firstborn son would have. But because black people were the firstborn children of God and have a closer relationship with God, they were chosen by God to spread the will of God. As because of their relationship with God, they are able to accurately express the will of God. So this is why the prophets and the messengers in the Bible are black, and why the first teachers and gurus of ancient times were also black, as black people have a closer relationship to the Father, so they are able to effectively spread the will and wisdom of God. So essentially, black people are the God people, and they have a duty to spread the accurate will of God, and they are chosen in the fact that they are meant to teach the wisdom of God to the masses. So with that being said, the Hebrew Israelites should not be preaching their message to black people, as regardless of what black people do, they will still be the chosen people of God, because it is their melanin which makes them the chosen people of God. So Hebrews should really be preaching the Bible to white people. They should be preaching the Bible to the people who are not so chosen, as the chosen people would already know the teachings of Christ, hence why they are the chosen people. So the Hebrews should be teaching the Bible to the people who are not so chosen, as they would not be familiar with the teachings. So rather than calling the Edomites devils and heathens, why don't you teach them how not to be heathens? So the point here is that Hebrews need to clean up their message and teach the Bible to white people, as that is who the book was intended for. Because if you say that black people wrote the Bible, then why are you preaching the Bible to black people, as who writes a book for themselves? So the book was not actually intended for us, but it was for him. See, this is probably why the Hebrews get so much resistance from black people when they teach them the Bible, as their spirit is rejecting it, because it is not meant for them. The Bible was meant for the so-called white man. But Leviticus alone will tell you who that book was written for. Go and read Leviticus. As we never needed the knowledge written in Leviticus, as we already knew that. We already had that knowledge in Kemet. So this shows you how the Bible is meant for him. We wrote the Bible for him. Another issue that I have with the Hebrew Israelites is that you will have some Hebrews who will talk about going to war with the Bible, and they will be on the streets preaching all this militancy. But the problem I have with that is the so-called white man also reads the Bible. So how can you go to war with the same book that your so-called enemy uses? So obviously these Hebrews ain't about nothing, because you can't really be serious in going to war with the same book that your so-called enemy uses. Now the final issue that I have with the Hebrews is that they will say that the Bible can be used as a political tool to fix black people. So they will say that black people are the chosen people of God and we are the Israelites, which would be our nationality. But my issue is that how can you say that the Bible is a political tool, but then you will say that the 12 tribes of Israel include not just black people, but other ethnic groups. But from a political standpoint, you can't say that you want to build a nation and that you want to fix black people when you have a mix of ethnic groups in your camp. You should first focus on black people before you can even attempt to try and fix other ethnic groups. So my point here is that the role of the Hebrew Israelites still needs to be established, as they don't really have a practical foundation. As how can you talk about going to war with the same book that your oppressor uses? And also, how can you talk about fixing black people when you have a mix of ethnicities in your camp? So my message to the Hebrew Israelites is that you guys need to establish yourself and come to a practical conclusion of what your role is supposed to be. Now, the next D that black people are obsessed with is documentaries. Black people seem to love these Afrocentric documentaries. But I understand that a documentary can be powerful in raising the consciousness of the people. But again, a documentary is only the first step. A documentary doesn't solve problems. But I feel like now these documentaries are getting out of hand, and black people seem to be obsessed with the actual documentary and information without actually doing anything with it. Now there is a popular Afrocentric documentary which has made a big impact in the black community. I am not going to mention the name of the documentary, nor am I going to mention the creator of these documentaries. But for those who have seen those documentaries know what I'm talking about. Now, the first one that was released was good. It broke down a lot of good information that can be a good starting point for beginners in the black conscious community. But I feel like the second one was the exact same as the first one. It had basically the same information, but with just new people. Then the third one was just trivial. It dealt with the most trivial concept of all, which is racism, as by now black people should already have a good understanding of racism. Dedicating a whole documentary to it is just trivial. But now they are making a fourth documentary, which is supposed to be dealing with more current events. But by now you should be able to see what's going on here. Because again, a documentary is only supposed to be the first stage, which gives you the information that you need to be able to do something practical. Because if progress was being made, you shouldn't need no more than one documentary. But the fact that there is now a fourth documentary being released lets you know what these documentaries are really about. But I am not going to blame the person for making the documentaries, but I am going to blame the ignorant so-called conscious people who keep buying into them. Because the only reason he keeps making them is because there is a demand for them. But see, what these ignorant so-called conscious people don't understand is that with all the money that they are given to help fund the production of the next DVD, they could have all put their money together and rented a building and hosted a free walk-in event where they show the first DVD and invite black people on the street who would not be interested in paying for the DVD. Now they can watch it for free. Because by making someone pay for the DVD, the only people that will see it are people who are already at a specific level of consciousness to find value in that type of product. But people who don't see value in a documentary would not even pay to watch it. So you have now limited your audience. So by hosting a free event, you will have now broadened your audience, and black people who will not see value in it will be able to see it. Then what you do, you show the first DVD because that is really the only one you need, and then you have the most educated person in the group stand up and do a Q&A at the end of the DVD. So by doing this, you don't have to be a scholar or a teacher, as the DVD will already have the information in there. All you have to do is be well versed with the information contained in the first DVD and be able to further elaborate on the points made in the DVD. You should also be able to provide resources and research material for the people who want to research the information further. So now instead of paying all this money to fund another DVD, you would have just used your money to potentially help hundreds of more black people. But see, black people in the so-called conscious community don't think like this, as black people in the so-called conscious community are like mice who find good cheese, and they tell all of the other mice about this good cheese, and then all of the mice gravitate around this good cheese. But these mice who gravitate around this source of cheese don't actually have a practical alternative to get more cheese. So what happens is that they are dependent on this one source of cheese, and they invest all of their time into getting this source of cheese. But then when this cheese is no longer available, the mice are just left with nothing. All because they weren't smart enough to find other alternatives to sustain themselves outside of that source of cheese. Alright, now the next thing that black people are addicted to is doctrines, but specifically old doctrines. Black people are stuck on old doctrines regardless if that doctrine is working towards the betterment of their condition. So this goes back to the premise of that debate being, which doctrine is better for black people, the Bible or ancient Egyptian teachings? But as I said before, that is a blanket statement, and a premise like that has no real conclusion. As the truth is that neither one of those doctrines are good for black people. Why? Because they are old doctrines. But see, there is another contradiction here. Because if we say that we are descendants of the people who wrote these doctrines in the first place, then why are we still using our old doctrines? Because if we are from the lineage of the people who wrote these doctrines in the first place, then it should be no problem for us to write some new shit. It should be no problem for us to write a new formula or new information that is relevant for the times that we are in right now. As let's be real with this, Kemet is a desert. Kemet is nowhere near what it used to be. There is nothing for black people in Egypt except for some empty tombs and destroyed temples. So black people shouldn't be going back to Egypt. Been there, done that. I don't care how many times you visit Egypt, ancient Kemet will not be resurrected. So all you are doing is wasting energy reminiscing on the past, when really you should be thinking about practical solutions for the future. Now, when it comes to the Bible itself is an old book. The Bible itself doesn't actually provide any practical solutions. But I feel like some of these brothers who are into the Bible are operating more on emotion than logic, as they may take that statement about there being no practical solutions in the Bible, and they will twist certain scriptures and create the illusion that the Bible is foolproof and contains all of this practical information. But black people have had the Bible for centuries, so if the Bible was so practical, then why has there been no major changes in the condition of black people? So again, there is more emotion in these people's minds than logic, as some black people may even go as far to say that the Bible is an acronym, meaning basic instruction before leaving Earth. But if the Bible was so basic, then why do you need interpreters? If the Bible was so basic, then there should be no Hebrew Israelites preaching the Bible on the streets, because the Bible is basic enough for me to understand it myself. For example, you don't see people preaching ABCs on the streets because it's basic and anyone can understand it. Furthermore, you don't need the Bible as an instruction manual before leaving Earth, because you wouldn't have incarnated to this planet without instructions. Any instructions that you need would already be encoded into your DNA. Also, if the Bible was a basic instruction before leaving Earth, then what instructions did people have before the Bible was written? Better yet, where did the people who originally wrote the Bible get their instructions from? So the point here is that black people need to stop being so emotionally tied to the Bible, and they need to stop trying to find purpose in an old, outdated book and just move on. as the so-called white man in his school systems wouldn't use a book that is more than 100 years old to teach his children, as the information is old and no longer relevant. But the Bible is well over 100 years old, but yet black people are still using it and teaching it to their children. So the key here is that black people need to stop expecting old doctrines to fix new problems, as in order to fix new problems you need new solutions. So for starters, something that I have mentioned before is that black people need a code of conduct or some type of law that they are able to refer to in order to stay on the right path. But we can no longer use the laws of Mayat or the 10 Commandments, as they are outdated and not practical for the times we are in right now. For example, one of the 10 Commandments is remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, and Sabbath means rest, and according to the Hebrew Israelites, the Sabbath day is Saturday, and they believe that you shouldn't work on Saturdays and that you should rest. But that in itself is not practical, as nowadays most jobs offer overtime in which you are able to work on Saturdays. And if working overtime on Saturdays will help you with making ends meet and make your life easier, then you will most likely work on Saturdays. So telling someone to not work on Saturdays based on some belief system, regardless of whether or not they need the money, is insanity. And these people claim to be conscious. So black people need more practical laws that are relevant for the current age. For example, law number 1 could be black men pull your pants up. Then law number 2 would be black women stop twerking in public. Then law number 3 would be black women take that weave out of your head. Those right there are samples of real practical laws that could be implemented in the black community. But to make it more effective, you could also implement some economic laws to make the money in the black community flow to where it should, in order to help improve the condition of the black community. So lastly, I am not saying that black people should throw away these doctrines. All I am saying is that if we claim to be of the lineage of the same people who wrote these doctrines, then it really doesn't make any sense for us to be using our old doctrines and trying to make them relevant for the times that we are in right now. As by now, black people should have already extracted the good information from the Bible and also the good information from the Egyptian teachings and created a new practical system which is relevant for the times we are in right now. But this right here is not my black solutions. This is just a snippet of what I got. I'm just giving you an idea of the kind of practicality that I am talking about. But as far as black solutions go, I have seen a lot of black people talk about different economic solutions and business solutions. And these people's whole premise is that black people should build a new nation with their own schools, banks and businesses. But all these ideas are great, but they are still not practical. As when you understand white supremacy, the so-called white man has had a 400-year head start when it comes to economics. So there really is no way that you are going to create a business that will overthrow his businesses, as he has had such a long head start. But I am not against black people starting businesses, but only if they are to sustain themselves and their community, but not to try and compete with the white man, as it ain't gonna happen. But if black people are thinking about a 10+ year business plan, that in itself is still not practical, as in order for you to have a business, you need to have a planet to build it on. And like I already told you in my Degenerated Society video, is that we are in the end times. So a 10-year business plan isn't practical, because to be honest, I don't even know if we even have 10 more years left. So in other words, if black people are going to be building anything, it ain't gonna be on this planet. But then you will have these so-called conscious people who will say that, but black people don't own any spaceships. See, this is the way you people think. You are thinking with a European mindset. Your mind is still trapped in this third dimensional box. You need to start thinking like the way our ancient African ancestors thought and free your mind. as most of you so-called conscious people identify with your ancient African or Hebrew culture, but your mindset is still trapped in the matrix and you are still caught up in his system. Alright, so I hope you take the information that I have brought forth to you in this video as a rational and practical alternative to the way you may have been thinking or led to believe by others in the conscious community. As I said before, this video is not an attack on my brothers and sisters, but more of an evaluation of the events and ideas that are transpiring. Alright, so with that being said, peace and stay safe out there.